Harrison County Sheriff Ronald J. Myers.
We'll have the witnesses at the podium, and then the attorneys are going to ask questions from where they're seated. And we do have a court reporter present, so everybody can sort of not talk over one another. That'd be appreciated. And then would you swear the witness?
Is there any soundness for the testimony about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Keep your voice up for me, please. Keep your voice up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good morning, Sheriff Maier. I'm Greg Conley. I represent the protester here today. I understand you've been subpoenaed to appear. Is that true?
That is correct.
And the subpoena included a request for you to bring Mr. Myers' full personnel file for the time period of his employment with your office. Is that a fair summary of that?
Yes, for this last full time, yes. Correct.
And you brought it with you?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell me, first of all, I guess I better have you state your full name and your occupation and your business address.
Yes, my full name is Sheriff Ronald J. Myers, and it's M-Y-E-R-S. I'm currently the Harrison County Sheriff, 114 Court Street, Cadiz, Ohio, of Harrison County.
And I believe you'll recall you were deposed during the quo warranto action where Mr. Maier was ousted from sheriff.
Yes, I remember being deposed, yes.
And I believe you were asked about your relationship with Mr. Maier, and you said something to the effect, we've been good friends forever.
I could have said that. I didn't go to my deposition.
Well, what is your relationship with Mr. Maier?
The relationship with Mr. Maier, he was our post commander at which covered Harrison County out of Jefferson County.
That's for the Highway Patrol.
For the Highway Patrol. He came there in roughly '98. And we've been good friends there from here, from that point to this time. We followed each other's career, and there's nothing in the statute that I think friendship enters into. So, but we have been good friends.
Since 1998, is that what you said?
Approximately, yes.
And that good friendship continues through and including today?
Correct.
Did you talk with Mr. Maier or with his attorney here prior to getting your subpoena?
Prior to getting my subpoena? No.
How about after you got your subpoena?
After I got my subpoena, yes, I did.
What did you all talk about?
Talked about the case today and that I need to be here.
That's it? They just said be here?
Basically, yes.
You said talked about the case. What do you mean by that?
Follow the subpoena and the documents that I needed to bring before the election board, and that's what I've done.
Mr. Rosenberg, give you any testimony tips or recommendations?
Nope.
How about Mr. Maier?
Nope.
How about anything else on his, Mr. Maier's behalf?
Nope.
When Mr. Maier was hired twice by your office in recent times, wasn't he?
Correct.
The first time was in January of 2013.
That is correct.
Let me hand you what's going to mark this, Mr. Chairman, P1,
Okay.
protester 1.
Okay. Yes, we can do this.
And I think I have enough for the board to follow along. Sometimes make it easier.
This is P1.
Yes. Sheriff Myers, I'm sorry. I've handed you Exhibit P1. This is a document I got from you, as a matter of fact, just Tuesday, I think. You recognize this document?
Yes, I do.
And this is Mr. Maier, Mr. Maier's application for the first time he was employed by your office.
Yes, that is correct.
And that's all I got to set application. Is there something else?
That's all we had.
Okay. And I see the date of his application is January 7, 2013. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And the date of his ID card from your office is also January 7, 2013.
That is correct.
So that whole process went rather lickety-split, didn't it?
Pretty much.
Okay. And if I recall from reading the Supreme Court's decision, he was employed 2 weekends, I think, with you that first time.
That's correct.
Right? Okay. Now, do you have a sister application to Exhibit P1 with you for the second time you hired him?
No, I do not,
How come?
because we don't require it.
You don't require applications. People just walk in the door and say, here I am, and you hire them?
No.
You're kidding, aren't you, Mayor? Sheriff?
What we did, what I have done in the past is I have a lot of retired sheriffs and sitting officers in other counties that come over and help us a lot. So what I did in George's case was we kept him on as a special, so there was no reason to require him to do the application again, or the only thing we had to do was change the SF 400 forms.
Tell the board, if you would, what's the SF 400?
The SF 400 form is the forms that we are required to turn in to the Apata Police Officers Academy, showing when and where an officer has been working at, and gives a history of that officer being there, from when he started day one. So if there's changes, then there's another form on the SF 400 that we can change and show his status information. So if his status changes, if he goes from full-time to a special, reserve or part-time, it's all included in the same thing. He still holds his commission throughout that whole entire period. If he would happen to come back, then the only thing we have to do, or required to do by the Apata standards, is change that check mark of status change, the date that we changed the status, and then ship it back into Apata.
We'll be handing the witness what I'm marking as Exhibit P2. I think I have sufficient copies for the board to follow along. Exhibit P2 is a document I received from your county auditor in Harrison County. Do you recognize this document?
I've never seen these before, but I'm assuming it's from our auditor's office, and that's how they do payroll.
And the first set of dates, do you know what the term PPE date means?
I have no idea. That's a function of the auditor's office.
Okay, but anyway, the first PPE date is 1/18/2014. Is that related to?
I think it's 13.
2013, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is that related to Exhibit P1 as far as the first employment?
I'm assuming it is. I'm assuming that's pay ending date, possibly. Can't speak on the auditor's behalf, but yes, that could be the pay that he received in January, since it's so close tied to the dates.
Okay, and then when he was hired the second time by you, when did he start?
He started on the 8th.
That was 2 days after the Supreme Court removed him as a usurper to the office.
That is correct.
How did you know that Mr. Maier had been removed?
I followed it on the Supreme Court's website.
Did Mr. Maier call you and tell you he'd been removed?
He did the following day.
And during that conversation, did he ask you to rehire him?
We had a conversation. I was needing a person at the time we have gas and oil is big in our county. The holidays is coming up. We have a lot of commercial traffic. we needed the extra help, and I was getting ready to hire somebody, and I asked George if he would like to have that position as a deputy sheriff in Harrison County.
Why did you ask George instead of some of these other special deputies and reserve deputies and retired deputies that you mentioned before? Why hire a guy 2 or 3 counties away?
Well, George was the most qualified, and as it goes through some of the first part of the employment background check that we did with George, or did on George, you know, I look at this as in some of these employment checks, when former Sheriff Swanson was the sheriff here, Sheriff Swanson put George on as a special deputy, which covers, like I said, covers special, part-time, anything that he needs a deputy sheriff for. I held Tim Swanson, former Sheriff Swanson, at a high authority. I thought he was Mr. BSSA, that's the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association. And with Tim's knowledge of George, shouldn't have been no problem on who I would hire. With George's background, he is a well-rounded person. He has the integrity and the honesty. And with Tim doing that, I felt if he was good enough for Stark County to be here, he was good enough for Harrison County.
Plus, of course, Mr. Myers, your good friend forever, right?
Friendship has nothing to do with it when you hire somebody.
And you donated $300 to Mr. Myers' election campaign, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
And you did that after he was ousted the first time?
No.
Before he was ousted?
Yes.
Did you come to his fundraiser?
Yes, I did.
How many special, part-time, reserve, whatever you want to call them, do you have in your county to serve as your department?
First thing, it's an office. It's not a department for the election board. We have about 6 part-time people that have other jobs. So with the gas and oil being so great in need of people, they probably won't, most of them will not come and work for me at $10 an hour. Full-time starts out a little bit higher. It's $12.98, I believe it is. So Mr. Maier was the most qualified individual that we had at that time with the experience that was deemed necessary for the position.
And it didn't bother you that he lived a couple of counties away?
No, we have no restrictions on where we hire our officers from.
Do you have other full-time deputies that reside in Stark County working for your office?
No.
Other than Mr. Maier, have you ever had such an officer?
Yes.
Who was that?
We had an officer years ago. His name was Johnny Good, Deputy Good. He lived in Jefferson County.
Jefferson County is immediately adjacent to yours.
Yes.
Stark County's not. You drove up here this morning or last night or what? How long did it take you?
45 minutes.
Were you speeding?
I don't think so. Relevant?
Huh?
Relevant?
Relevant, I don't know.
Yeah. What?
Well,
How
what
fast
I'm
I was
trying
going?
to ascertain is if one does not violate the speed limit, how long does it take one to drive?
Well, I came through 2 bodies of water because my county's flooded. So it was about 45 minutes is what it took to get up here.
Prior to hiring Mr. Maier the second time, you said you needed more deputies because of oil and gas work.
Yes.
So you, of course, advertised in the paper and you posted jobs and
No.
did all that, didn't you?
We was not required to do that.
I didn't ask you, I'm sorry, I didn't ask you if you were required, I asked you if you did.
No.
And when you hired Mr. Maier the second go round, how long did you think he was going to stay there?
Didn't know.
Well, did you all talk about it?
No, we never talked about it. When he came down and said, I need a job, he he was out of a job. I didn't know if he's going to be there 4 weeks, 6 months, or 2 years.
So he called you and said, I need a job.
When we talked about it, yes, on the phone.
And this is prior to the second hire.
Yes, it's been on
Supreme
7.
Court throws him out. He calls you the next day and says, I need a job. And you say, come on down.
Correct.
Did Mr. Maier, when he was hired the second time, replace another deputy who died, quit, retired?
No, he did not.
And when Mr. Maier resigned, and will be marked as an exhibit next, Sheriff, he wrote you a letter to say, dated December 5, said I resigned. After he resigned, you replaced him with whom?
Mr. Maier, we replaced him with Kevin Hall. We just replaced him.
Just replaced him. What do you mean by that?
We have a new policy in place on how to hire people, individuals. That came into place about the mid of December. We had our complete county policy, I shouldn't say county, complete sheriff's office policy rewritten. And there were some guidelines that we followed in that for Mr. Maier's replacement.
And so you hired somebody to replace Mr. Maier, what, 2, 3, 4 weeks after he quit?
No, it was longer than that. It was about a month and a half.
Well, if you're so desperate for deputies, why in the world, what'd you do in that month and a half? Did the whole county go to the devil?
We posted it for 3 weeks.
When you say posted it, tell the board what you mean by that.
We posted it on the board. We have under FOP contracts, so we posted it on the board. So we could get anybody who wanted to apply for that position that was qualified to be a law enforcement officer.
Is that part of, now Mr. Maier in this, and again, I'm limiting my questions to this second stint of employment with your office. I believe, did you say you hired him the second time effective November 7 or November 8? Or?
It was November 8th.
So when you hired him the second time, was there this FOP contract you just mentioned in effect?
Yes, we just signed.
And you say before you hired his replacement, a month and a half or so later, that you had a new procedure in place. And you
New policy and
posted it.
procedure, correct.
And that policy and procedure came from where? What source? The union contract, for instance?
No, we have that policy. It's through, we belong to Corsa. Corsa has rewritten our entire policy and procedure for our office due to case law being out there, and we initiated that policy on this hire. Well, it was initiated in the middle of December. We initiated to do the hiring process.
Can you tell the board what Corsa is? Is that an acronym for a big name?
Well, it's the County Commissioners Insurance. I'm not sure what it all stands for.
Something to that effect.
Yes, it's the insurance that we have. County Commissioners.
So it's rather fortunate for Mr. Maier that this posting the job policy wasn't initiated until after he quit the second time.
Correct.
Did Mr. Maier ever join the union you just mentioned?
No, he did not. Wasn't there long.
How long do you have to be there as a deputy? He was just a deputy, right? He wasn't a sergeant, a corporal, or a major.
He was hired in as a deputy sheriff.
That's
Full-time.
the lowest rank of law enforcement in your office.
Correct.
This will be exhibit E3. Hand you what's been marked as Exhibit P3, but before we get to that, yes, I'm going to mark it out of order. Exhibit P4. last couple of days. Exhibit P4 is another document I got from your office. Do you recognize it, the union contract?
Yeah, give me one.
You recognize that document?
Yes.
Is this the document that the contract, I guess in CERB lingo, it's called a CBO, CBA, collective bargaining agreement? Okay, is this the one that was in effect that would cover Mr. Maier during both of his stints of employment with you?
Only one.
The second one?
Yes.
And you had said that he's not required to join the union. He hadn't been there long enough?
I didn't say that. I said he wasn't there long enough. So I don't know that he got to be able to join the union.
Okay, well, did he join the union?
I don't know if that's good.
Well, then you have to sign one of those checkoff cards and have that go through your office and through the audit.
It does. That could be my fiscal officer that did that.
Okay, in your personnel file that you brought with you, is there any indication that Mr. Maier ever joined the union?
No. So we don't keep a copy of it in the personnel file.
You said he wasn't there long enough to join the union. What article number in Exhibit P4 would cover that? You signed this contract, didn't you? Sheriff?
But I had attorneys do this for me.
And we all know you can't trust attorneys.
Basically.
But of course, you being a good public official, you of course read the contract, didn't you?
Yeah, well, some of the items did not change. Some of them did. We went over the ones that did, and I have not read this document. Neither probably has any of the union reps there or anybody else in the last probably 6 or 7 years. They usually don't pull it out until there's a grievance filed.
That's a little disconcerting, I'm sure, to the public, but I appreciate your candor. But my question now is, you said Mr. Maier wasn't there. I'm limiting my questions down to his second stint of employment after the Supreme Court ousted him as a usurper to the office of sheriff. You said that Mr. Maier had not been there long enough to join the union. Can you point out to me what contractual provision in P4 covers that base?
Object, members. This whole line of questioning is irrelevant as to whether or not he meets the requirements of 8A, 9A, or 9B.
Now, I'll sustain that motion. I believe that he's answered the question with respect to if he doesn't know if Sheriff Maier joined the union or not. And it's not with the rules, so I think we can move on.
Mr. Chairman, he said Mr. Maier wasn't there long enough to join the union. I think one could take that to mean he did not join the union. This goes to my client's assertion of the sham, and I think it's an appropriate line of inquiry. If the sheriff simply says, I don't know what provision that is, well, so be it. But he hadn't really said that.
But he also indicated that he wasn't sure if he joined the union or not. So I think you can ask that question to Sheriff Maier when he's on the stand.
With reference to Exhibit P4, did Mr. Maier serve the probationary period that's referred to in the contract? That's article number 14, Sheriff. On page 15 of P4.
No, because he was only there for approximately 30 days. He wasn't serving his full year.
probationary period, 1 year?
1 year, according to the contract.
And what's the import under this contract of serving 1 year?
That's what was designed by our union representatives as well as my council at the time that we built negotiated the contract, the agreement. And I think it's been in there for, I can't remember how many years we've had this contract or been in the FOP. I'm going to say early 2000.
I'm sorry, my question wasn't very clear. When I asked you what the import was, I meant, what's the difference between a probationary employee and a non-probationary employee under this P1?
Nothing.
Or P4, rather?
Nothing.
Then why is it in the contract?
Objection. This is Barfield.
Sustained.
Isn't it true that a probationary employee can be discharged at any time without cause under the contract?
That is correct.
And so when you get through your probationary period of 1 year as a deputy working in your office, then you have certain rights under this contract.
Your rights are all there under the contract. You're on probation.
But
You're probationary until the year.
So the contract rights kick in after the 1 year of successful probationary period.
Say objection.
Is that correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
Was Mr. Maier a permanent employee when he was working for you this second go round?
Yes, he was.
And again, I think you told me you didn't know how long you'd be there.
That is correct.
And it's your testimony under oath, this was not an employment merely for purposes of getting him qualified to be sheriff in Stark County.
No?
Didn't have a darn thing to do with it.
Nope.
All coincidence.
I'm not sure whether it was a coincidence, but it was, he got ousted by the Supreme Court and I needed a road union.
Now let's get to, I guess I've already given it to you, Exhibit P3. Do you recognize that letter?
Yes.
This is a letter that Mr. Maier caused to be delivered to you.
Yes.
Do you recall that he sent it in the mail or email, fax, postal, or what did he do? Don't you remember?
I don't recall.
Do you remember when you got it?
Probably as of, I think he advised us that he was seeking the nomination on the Democrat on the DCC on the night of the 5th, and that he was going to be giving me or sending me a resignation.
Okay, the letter's dated December 5, 2013, and I see in the second paragraph, he said he's already asked the DCC. Do you see that? Second paragraph, last line. Last
Okay,
line.
yes, I see that.
Okay, and I thought you just said he told you he was going to ask them, but this letter, he says he's already asked them.
Well, I don't know when he asked them, and it does say that, so if it was on that day when he wrote this letter, then that was the day he asked him.
In looking at the second paragraph, second sentence, and you can tell me if I'm reading it wrong, as a result of my full-time employment with your office, I have again asked the Stark County Democratic Party to consider my application for appointment as sheriff. Did I read that right? And but it's still your position that his appointment by your office, was just a coincidence. It didn't have anything to do with him getting qualified here in Stark County. No further questions.